In the last module, we were looking at Pythagoras, Protagoras, Plato, and the philosophers like that. And today, we are going to see a philosopher who is one of the most important philosophers in the history of philosophy. I am pretty sure you all know his name. He is so important in the history of philosophy that he is very often referred to as the philosopher. When some of the medieval authors write the philosopher, it refers to Aristotle. Sometimes he is called as the first teacher, or the master of all who knows. So these are different titles or the expressions which were used by later writers in order to designate Aristotle. So he was so important. That's what you have to understand. When somebody writes the philosopher says, they are meaning Aristotle. There are so many other philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Parmenides, Democritus. There are many of them. But when somebody writes the philosopher, the master of all who knows, the first teacher, all these designations go to Aristotle. So that was his importance in the history of philosophy. If you look at Aristotle, why he becomes so important? That's a question. Why Aristotle becomes such an important philosopher? Because he dealt with a wide area of knowledge. He was dealing with a very wide area of knowledge. If you look at modern universities, in the modern schools, what all you learn, there are so many subjects that you learn. These subjects were classified and named by Aristotle in the 4th century BC. You understand? You learn biology, you learn physics, you learn astronomy, you learn psychology. So most of the modern sciences, they were classified so and named by this great philosopher called Aristotle. So his area of knowledge was so wide than any other philosopher. That is the reason why he becomes such an important person in the history of philosophy. As all of us know, he was the disciple of Plato. Even though he was a disciple of Plato, he did not agree with all the teachings of Plato. He was very critical about Plato. So his own disciple Aristotle has been very critical about Plato with regard to the theory of ideas. So if you look at Plato was the architect of the ideal world. Whatever we see in this world are the copy or reflection of what we see in the what exists in reality in the world of ideas. So whatever we see in this world are imitation or copy of what actually exists in the world of ideas. I hope you all remember that. If you remember Plato well, it is easy to understand Aristotle, or you will be able to contrast with Plato and understand Aristotle. So Plato was the architect of the ideal world, and he advocated a method of contemplation, a method of reasoning. But on the other hand, Aristotle was a methodical scholar who was occupied with this world, life in this earth, life here on this earth. He was more concerned with the life on this earth, whatever you see in this world. So you don't need to look at the world of ideas. You need to look at the world which is in front of you, the nature which is around you, and you see things there. They are real. The form of any object is immanent in that object. It is not somewhere it is not residing in a faraway place in a different world, which is a transcendental world. Aristotle advocated the empirical process. Plato was an idealist, Aristotle was an empiricist, and he advised people to keep their eyes open and look around the world. I hope all of you remember the painting, the School of Athens, which I showed you in the lecture on Plato. So do you remember Plato and Aristotle, how they were represented? How are they represented? Plato and Aristotle. Plato is pointing upwards. His hands are pointing upwards. And Aristotle, his hands are showing you what is around the world, pointing towards the world. So you remember that difference. Plato is the architect of ideal world. Aristotle was more concerned about the world around him. And Plato was advocating a method of reasoning, contemplation, where Aristotle was more focusing on experiment. It is not that they were denying each other, but more focus was on experimentation and observation for Aristotle. So Aristotle agrees with the idealistic and teleological presupposition of his master Plato, but he holds the idea that he does not deny form or idea altogether. What he says is the form for Plato is in a transcendental world, apart from this world. It is not here. But the form for Aristotle is immanent. It is in this world. Suppose there is a plant, and the form of this plant for Plato remains in a world of ideas, in a world of form, according to his theory of forms. But when it comes to Aristotle, the form of this plant is immanent in this plant. It is not anywhere else. It is within this plant. Ideas or forms are not detached. Ideas or forms are not detached from the world we perceive. It is immanent. It is a part of this world. It is not something that is far away. And the ideas give life and form to the objects that you see in the world. It is nowhere else. It is within this world. That was the basic difference between Aristotle and Plato. I already mentioned that the knowledge of Aristotle is very wide in range, and he has written so much. If you want to understand his books, if you want to go through his books, there are so many. He had a very wide range of knowledge. And he wrote on many different subjects. So I'll just refer to some of them. What were the important areas of his discussion, and I will show you a slide for that. It is classified into some 7 topics. So there are works on logic, organon, the organ or instrument for acquiring knowledge, and about categories, propositions, prior analytics dealing with syllogism, posterior analytics dealing with demonstration, topics dealing with probable arguments, sophistical refutation, analysis and refutation of sophism. So there are so many works which he has written on logic. Then there are works on metaphysics. There are 14 books on metaphysics or first philosophy, which is the highest branch of philosophy. And you must remember that he never used the term metaphysics. That term was first used by Andronicus of Rhodes, who was a later follower of Aristotle, not during his lifetime, very much later. And there are books on natural philosophy. There you see physics, the modern physics, it comes after that. On the heavens, the science of astronomy is after that, on the heavens. When I say on the heavens, it is not a book about heaven, hell. It is not a religious thing. It is about the celestial bodies, heavens. When it's a plural, it means that. About stars, planet, galaxy. It's about the celestial bodies. So on the heavens, on generation and corruption, on meteorology, psychology, on the soul, de anima, on the soul, botany, on animals, which is zoology, on animals, origin of animals, on the progression of animals, on the locomotion of animals. So these are the different books he wrote, and he was a great taxonomer. He was the meaning of taxonomy. What is taxonomy? Classifying and defining a category. So he was classifying and defining categories and naming these things. So he was a great taxonomer, and most of the modern academic world follows the classifications or categorization made by Aristotle. And on ethics, he has written Nicomachean Ethics. By the way, Nicomachus was his own father, and that book is named after Nicomachus. So Nicomachus is he was the father of Aristotle, named after his own father. And Eudemian Ethics, Magna Moralia, or the Greater Ethics. So these are the works on ethics. And on politics, on the Constitution of Athens. He has written a book on the Constitution of Athens, which is named Politics. And there is Rhetorics, Rhetoric to Theodactus and Rhetoric to Alexander, and Rhetorics, 3 books of Rhetorics. And you must also remember that he was the teacher of Alexander the Great. He was in the court of Alexander's father Philip, who was the Macedonian king, and later he was also teaching Alexander there. The Philip's son Alexander was being taught by Aristotle, and later, Alexander went on to conquer the world, and you know the history, and he is known as Alexander the Great. Lastly, he has done a work on aesthetics, which is named as Poetics, which deals mostly with the drama or theatre or poetry. That was the main concern, but that is one of the most ancient works on aesthetics. So these are the works written by him. So you understand the variety of or the wide range of knowledge or area that was under the concern or consideration of Aristotle.